Or yeah, there we go. Okay, and know that at any time you guys can like stop me because this is really just an open space to kind of chat, pique your curiosity about stuff. So you can always unmute and ask questions or type it in the chat box. But I just wanted to share some extra info on that topic of weight loss so that we even know what questions to ask. Because sometimes when we're new into a topic of something, it can be difficult to. Everyone's like, okay, the floor is open for questions. And when we're new into something, it's like I'm not even sure what questions I need to ask to get the information that I need. So that's what the goal is of today. Is to just kind of share some info, and then it may pique your curiosity, being like, "Oh, okay, I want to know more about this, or can we get some clarity on that?" So that's what I wanted to talk about today. So when it comes to weight loss, the overarching theme of how that is created in the body is when there is less calories coming in than our body is needing. So then it's burning the stored fat, the stored energy stores that the body has put there from having a surplus of calories. So the physiology of our body can't really go against that truth of when there's less calories coming in than our body needs, that it will use stored fat to go through that to give our body energy. The thing where it gets a little bit confusing is that there's a lot of different factors that impact the calories that are coming in, and a lot of different factors that input the calories that are going out. So it can get confusing with trying to count calories because it's such an ever changing thing. It's not just kind of black and white. So I wanted to go over a couple things that impact calories coming, like the calories that are coming in, and what are the factors that impact the calories being burned going out part of the equation, so we can see all the different areas of influence that can be impacting what is the actual amount of calories coming in and going out, to find out what brings us in a deficit and what brings us in a surplus. So for example, the things that can impact calories coming into the body are a couple things. When it comes to things with labels or calorie counting and stuff like that in itself, there's a lot of room for error, just due to the ability of companies to know exactly how many calories. Like there's a lot of room for error, so it's not a perfect science of saying this is 100 calories. I think they have like a 20% error margin, so it can be difficult to know exactly like what is the actual amount of calories in that. So that's one of the areas where our perceived calories in can be changed. So labeling errors there, it's always off. Nothing's a perfect science. The other thing can impact our perceived amount of calories coming in is that, say there's 100 calories in this and then I eat it, there may be only a certain percentage of those calories that are actually being absorbed to the body. And it's the amount of calories that are absorbed into the body that are having an impact on the calories in. For example, one of the things that can change is the amount of processing that a food has gone through. So say I eat 100 calories of a whole potato. As that goes into my body, there's going to be a percentage of those calories that are fiber. And so the body's not actually absorbing those calories because they're being used as roughage and moving through the body. So that 100 calories is actually only like 60 calories that's absorbed. And then say we take 100 calories of potato chips, there's more like 99 calories of the potato chips that are being absorbed. So you're getting more of a calorie intake because there isn't any of that fiber in there that is going to not be absorbed into our body. Then there's also the amount of energy that it takes to digest certain foods. So when a food is more processed, it's already gone through a bit of the digestion process, whether it's been chemically or just processed, like they've removed the water and removed the fiber. So it takes less energy from the body to break down that thing to use it. So then you end up absorbing more of the calories. So, same thing like the idea with a whole potato. The body has to expend more energy to break down that potato. So it's burning more calories to like break it down. So then you're absorbing less calories from that thing because your body has to work so much harder to break it down. So protein in that sense, that's why it's so heavily, one of the reasons that it's prioritized during weight loss phases is because it's a complex like molecule, so the body needs to use more energy just to break it down. So say you have 100 calories worth of chicken, you end up only absorbing like 60 of the calories of the chicken because your body has to expend so much energy to break it down. Our microbiome, like the different gut bugs in there, they can also change the amount of calories that we absorb from food. There's different types of bacteria that are better at extracting energy from food and ones that aren't so good. So the differences in our microbiome can change our metabolism because it changes the amount of calories that we can absorb. The other things that can impact what our perceived amount of calories in are is just our human judgment. Sometimes we don't have a super clear idea of what it is that we're actually intaking. I don't even remember what I did yesterday, so our human judgment isn't often super accurate when it comes to giving a solid picture of how much and what did we eat, because we're so distracted and a lot is going on autopilot. So sometimes we can think that we're eating a certain amount and then get frustrated being like, why isn't anything changing? But then we kind of forget about the things that we grabbed, or that one meal that we didn't really register because I was distracted, or we had a bigger portion of this than we thought. So there's also some room for error in our judgment by just being human. And so our perceived amount of what's coming in is different. That can also show up in when it feels like we've been really consistent and working really hard at something for a long period of time and then feeling like we're kind of stuck. And sometimes that can be that our perception of what we've been doing, because say Monday to Friday we eat a certain way, so we're like, yeah, I'm like staying in a calorie deficit Monday to Friday. And then we kind of are super busy on the weekend, so we don't really pay attention to things. But then we start again Monday to Friday. But overall, through that big period, we actually don't end up in a calorie deficit because the weekends are offsetting the week. So we have this perception that we're in a calorie deficit. But then when you take the average over 2 weeks, when it includes those random little grabs here and the weekends, it ends up not actually bringing the body into a calorie deficit, because it takes a while for the body to burn through its stored energy. There's, humans aren't calculators, so these are all just guesstimations and stuff, but they say it takes around 3,500 calories equal like 1 pound of fat loss. So that means we need to be in a deficit of 3,500 calories to equal 1 pound of fat loss. So for example, that would be like eating 500 calories less than what our body currently needs every day for 7 days to equal 1 pound of fat loss. And 500 calories is that would be like eliminating a full meal. So that's quite an intense like calorie deficit. And it's not that you wouldn't see weight loss if you kept that up. It's just that it's hard to stay consistent with that big of a jump for long enough to continue to see the weight loss, because that can get hard, and then we have hunger or cravings, or life gets in the way and it throws us a curveball. So then it ends up not consistently creating a calorie deficit because so say it's like we're in a 500 calorie deficit Monday through Friday, but then overate by 500 calories on Saturday, then when you even it all out throughout the week, you're not actually in a deficit. So that's where when we're following something Monday to Friday and then not following something Saturday, Sunday, it can feel like we're doing all the things, but then when you look at the big picture throughout the month, once we've averaged out all the days, it's like we weren't actually in a calorie deficit. Same can go for like, I'm good all day, but then I just have some snacks at night. And especially when we try to create too big of a calorie deficit, then our hunger's quite out of control. So then we have to be using our willpower to be like, okay, no, don't do it. But then the moment we get tired and late at night, we go, oh, fuck it. I can't do it any longer. So then we grab processed foods, which can provide like a really big calorie intake without feeling physically satisfying. So it's really easy to overeat in calories on processed foods. That's why it's like, oh no, I did good all week, but then I just had a bowl of chips. But then say the bowl of chips was actually like 3 servings of chips, and so that equals 800 calories, then that gets in the way of your calorie deficit from Monday to Friday because you can so quickly up the calories by eating, 3 bowls of chips or whatever. So those are some things that can impact the calories in part of the equation. Does that kind of make sense how the calories in, calories out, it is true that like that's how the body burns fat, but our perception of calories coming in can be influenced by a lot of different factors. Do I have you guys out all so far on the calories inside of things? Do a little nod if you have any questions. Let me know. So
I do have a question.
yeah, please.
I just want to know, so how do we determine what our body actually needs calorie wise? Because everybody's different, right? So
So that's where it's the long game and consistency that matters because everybody's different. Then we have to be paying attention to what is it that we're currently doing, and then the way we'll know is if it's too much is if our weight continues to climb up, then we know that the current amount that we're eating with our lifestyle is too much for what our body needs. So that's the clue from the body. If you see a continual, not just little fluctuations, but if you see a continual trend upwards and the body keeps storing fat, then that's a clue that it's too much for what our body needs. And then if you see an extreme weight loss, it's like, oh shit, my weight's dropping like 5 pounds a week and I'm starting to lose my hair and I'm feeling tired and moody and my sex drive is not good. That's the body telling you I'm not getting enough. Like that's too much. So does that kind of make sense of how to know? Because the body will either gain weight or it'll lose weight, or we'll feel changes in like how we feel. And then, so then we go on to calories out. So because there's lots of different things, like you mentioned, everybody's different. So here are a couple of the things that change what the calories out are. So this is kind of our metabolism. So there's kind of 4 different areas in where our body burns through energy. The first one, which is it's like 70% of our metabolism is used through the BMR, it's called, your basal metabolic rate. This is like when you're at rest, the energy needs of your body to just like keep you going. So with our BMR, the things that affect our body's metabolism, some are out of our control and some are kind of in our control. So things like our age, our genetics, our sex, like men generally have a higher BMR. And so those ones are kind of out of our control. Like our age and sex and genetics are out of our control, but that doesn't mean that doesn't mean we give up. We just go, okay, those are out of control. So then we focus on what are the things that are in our control. The one in our basal metabolic rate at rest, the amount of calories we use to just stay alive, the one that's in our control is our lean muscle mass. That means like our muscle mass, because muscle mass uses up more energy just to stay alive. So that's how you may see people, like, say they're the same height, but if one has more muscle mass, they'll probably have more flexibility with the amounts of foods that they're able to eat without seeing weight gain, because their body is burning more energy to keep its muscle mass going. And then there are factors with genetics and microbiome which impact people's metabolism. So it's like you'll see some people, they can do whatever the heck they want and they stay lean, you know? So genetics do play a role, but that doesn't mean that it's a lost cause. It's just that we focus on the things that are in our control, like building lean muscle mass, which helps increase our metabolism. So the building strength and building muscle mass is the one area where we can impact our BMR the most. And then the other way the body burns through energy, which we don't pay attention to as much, is NEAT. That's the non-exercise activity thermogenesis, it's called. So all of the movement that we do day to day that isn't like intentional exercise. So this is one way where we can have a big impact on our metabolism. This accounts for about 15% of our metabolism, is just by the general movement we do throughout the day. You may see people and you're like, wow, they can just, they feel like they can eat more and not see some weight gain, but you will notice that there's a difference between some people with how much they move throughout the day. If our body is super still and not moving for a big portion of the day, then we're not using up as much energy because our body's not moving very much. But you'll see other people where it's like, oh, they're kind of like fidgeting all day and they're moving, they're tapping their leg and they're stretching and they're getting up and walking around, and their job may be more like that. They're not, it's not like they're sweating and huffing and puffing all day, but they're just moving a lot more all day. That will increase your metabolism, because your body, like every time you move your body, that's a lot of like chemical processes and stuff going on in your body to make it happen. So you'll see people who fidget more and stuff, they have a higher metabolism. And you'll notice when people go on intense, like fast diets, the body will recognize that there's less calories coming in. And it doesn't like, it fights against losing fat, because in its mind, having that stored energy is something that helps you survive. So you'll notice that even subconsciously, your metabolism will lower to try to match the lower calorie intake. So you'll even naturally just fidget and move less. So that's another area that impacts the calories out part. Your age, genetics, sex, and your lean muscle mass. And then also your just general movement throughout the day. And then there is the thermic effect of food. So that's another area in our metabolism that uses up energy. So that's the energy required to process and use food. So when we're eating more whole foods, because they have more complex molecules, more fiber, the body needs to use more energy to digest and absorb them. So that also increases your metabolism. The more whole foods you eat, the more energy your body needs to expend to digest and use them. So it seems like we can eat a way larger volume amount of whole foods, but it's harder to gain weight eating mostly whole foods, because for a couple of reasons. The body needs to use more energy to digest and absorb it, but also because of its volume and lower calorie count, because it's filled with water and fiber, which isn't adding to the calorie load, you feel physically full. So then you don't have to battle that hunger all the time, because you're also feeling physically full and satisfied. So that's the thermic effect of food. That's how the quality of our food can impact our metabolism. And then for the last little 5% is your exercise. So exercise will also increase your metabolism, because it's an action that your body has to do. So it will increase the amount of calories burned. So these are just a bunch of different areas of how you can see that there's a lot of things that can impact calories coming in and calories going out. So far, do we have any questions on that? Like the different ways? I like pointing that out because sometimes we forget all the different ways that we can help support and boost our metabolism to help our body expend more energy. Because sometimes we just focus on fitness, which is like the 5%, but we can also focus on increasing more whole foods, which increases the thermic effect of food, more movement generally throughout the day, because what you do for 18 hours of the day will have a bigger impact than what you do for the 30 minutes to an hour of the day. So focusing on moving more in general, and then your BMR, what your body burns at rest. When you do work out, if you focus on building muscle and eating enough of protein to build that muscle and sleeping so that your body's actually building the muscle.
And you need to drink a lot of water too, correct?
So water helps for the health of your body. It doesn't have a huge impact on like calories in, calories out because it just doesn't have any calories, but what it does do is it helps you follow through on the actions you need to do to support your body because when you're hydrated, you feel better, you have more energy, you have more clarity. You also aren't battling like those thirst signals, which can be confused as hunger signals, and it physically fills you up as well, so there's less hunger there. So it helps support in other ways, and it's also just essential like for your health and well-being. But on the calories in, calories out, it itself doesn't have any calories. But yeah, it's always an important thing for health in general. So on those, any questions on that, the calories out kind of side of things, or anything causing a little extra confusion, or any questions on like kind of the weight loss stuff? So far so good. Does it feel like you have a good idea? And the other thing that is important to note is because sometimes when we hit a plateau, then we can get frustrated because we're like, well, shit, what I'm doing isn't working. It's not that it's not working. It's just that what gets you here won't get you there. And it's because you yourself as a person has changed. Like say you make these changes and then you lose 10 pounds, your physical body is now different. So it now has a different need and it now has a different energy expenditure because it is different. It is 10 pounds of fat loss different. So it now needs different actions to get different results. So what gets you here won't get you there. And one way we sometimes get stuck is that we'll often get into the mindset of like, okay, I'm going to do these changes. And then when I hit my goal, I'll be able to relax and like go back to normal. And that's what kicks us in the butt a little bit because when we go back to normal, if we go, whatever actions we did before, which got us the results we had, if we fall back to those same actions, it'll create those same results. And if there's been a history of doing intense kind of like cleanses or detoxes or super strict diets or like fast weight loss diets, it feels like it gets harder each time because when we try to drop weight fast, we're also losing muscle mass. So then when we have less muscle mass, we have a lower metabolism. So then to lose weight, we need to drop the calories even further because our body's not using as much. But then after an intense dieting thing, so we have less muscle mass, so our body's using less, so we need less calories. but then we've also reduced our metabolism because we're moving our body less because we're tired and not feeling good because of that strict dieting attempt. So then it's kind of a double whammy. We've lost muscle mass and we're fatigued. We're not moving as much. We don't have the energy to push it at the gym to build muscle mass. So then it gets hard to sustain because then our metabolism has lowered to a point where it's like, to lose weight, we'd have to be eating 800 calories a day. And like, that's a super hard thing to stick to long enough. And it totally impacts your health because if you're under eating nutrients, then none of your organs are working properly, which then also makes it hard to lose weight because your body's in a state of stress all the time. So that is kind of a bunch of different topics around weight loss. How can I give a little extra clarity so that you guys would also feel confident? Like if somebody had any questions about weight loss or hitting plateaus, you'd be like, oh, I think I may have an idea of like what needs to happen here. Anything come up for you, ladies? Feel free to throw it in the chat too, or even just like a thumbs up if you feel like it gave a little extra idea. What do you think?
I still don't really know how to break through like a plateau without, you know, lowering the calories more. Like I understand what you're saying. It stresses the body and it reduces your lean mass. But like when you feel stuck and there's not a lot of change happening, what are the kind of tips you would give for someone to push through that?
Mm-hmm. So sometimes it can just be a time thing. It's like we may not just be giving it enough time for the body to go through those changes, or it's a consistency thing where we feel like we're stuck at a plateau, but when we look at the whole picture, like those random little grabs or weekends or meals where we're like, ah, fuck it, this will just be like a meal where I'm not really paying attention. And sometimes they can sneakily be like, one meal could end up being an energy intake of like, say you have a meal where you're like, I'm gonna not even pay attention to how my body feels, or it's hyper processed, or it's like someone made it at a restaurant, so there's all these like oils in there, so it's really high calorie. And then we have a couple glasses of wine, and then we have a dessert, but then we don't feel good the next day, so then we move less. So it's like sometimes it's even just a consistency over a long period of time that's creating the plateau. So sometimes that's something to look at, and it's like, okay, maybe there's actually, when we zoom out and look at the whole picture, it is just in a calorie surplus. So say we've been staying 80% consistent. To get to level B, we might need to stay 85% consistent with our actions and our portion control, because sometimes it can just be a perception thing of we think we're doing something, but then if we were to actually look at all the different factors, like how much we're moving throughout the day, or all those things that our brain, because sometimes our brain will kind of just shut it off, like, oh, well, it's just one meal, so it won't really matter. But then depending on how many times those add up or what that meal actually consists of, over time, it can kind of get in the way. So that's kind of a thing to like, if we feel like we've hit a plateau, is it actually a plateau of where it's been like 2 months and you're stuck at the same thing? Or is it just, it feels like a plateau, but it's just part of the journey and we haven't stuck it out long enough? Because sometimes it's hard to pinpoint what it is, because often when we go to make a change, we change a lot of things. So you may be working out more or increasing more whole foods, so the scale weight's not changing because there's more mass of food and fiber in your belly, and there's more inflammation because you're challenging your muscles and you're building strength but losing fat stores. So the scale weight may not have budged, but there is still changes happening. But then if there's a week where we don't see the scale weight budge, and then we go, oh, frig it, nothing's working, so then we have 2 days on the weekend where we go F it, whatever, and then we don't pay attention to anything and then go to start fresh again on Monday, then we could have not been in a deficit after all of that, if that makes sense. So it may just be like a length of time thing. There could be changes happening. I like thinking of it. So it's like, so two things. It could just be that there just needs to be more consistency or make some more changes. Because sometimes there's like sneaky things that really bump up calories. It's like, oh, I just grabbed a handful of nuts a couple times a day here and there, but then those things are quite dense. So then you end up not being in a calorie deficit, or it's a consistency, or we need to make changes because the body is now the body has changed, so it requires something different, or it just needs more time. It's like when you put an ice cube out on the counter, for a while, it doesn't look like anything's happening. Technically, things are happening. It is melting, but you can't see it to the physical eye until it hits like a certain time or a certain temperature. And it's not that it wasn't melting until it got to 10, 20 degrees. It was melting the whole time, and then you just started to notice it. So it could just be a time thing as well. If that makes sense. Yeah, I know it can be frustrating too, because there's so many. Being human is quite complex, and like there's lots of things going on, and when we're in something it can feel like a long time. It's like, feel like I've been consistent forever, but then when we zoom out and look at it, it's like maybe just 2 weeks. And so it takes the body a while to start to trust us. And sometimes there's like little tweaks. It's like either the cooking methods we use, or some things maybe like sneakily really ramping up the calories, or we're exercising daily, but our body's not actually burning a ton because we sit the rest of the day. So then we actually need less calories than we think. So, yeah, so it can kind of be a little bit of both. So it's a trial and error thing. But the only way to guarantee not seeing progress is to give up. And it's good to say those things out loud, because often we'll go, oh, it's not working. Okay, well, screw this, whatever. But then going that route is definitely not going to keep things going in the right direction. So it's good to kind of call ourselves out when we feel like we're going, it's not working, whatever, I'm going to give up. It's like, well, giving up is definitely not going to keep working. It's like, either make a couple little tweaks because what worked for you then isn't working for you now, or give it time and make sure that you're actually being consistent. So either making changes or giving it more time are kind of the two options. Giving up, we're never going to have giving up on the table as an option. So if I could wrap all of that up into kind of simplifying changes in our body, I would say our calories determine our weight, but weight isn't all that matters, because health and our strength and ability to do things. But anyways, our calories equal our weight. So managing calories in and calories out will have the impact on your weight. Managing your macronutrients and your muscles will determine your body composition. And then managing your micronutrients determines your health. And then your genetics determines your body shape and color. We can't change how broad our shoulders are or how wide our rib cage flares. Like, that stuff is genetics, and can't change our skin color and stuff like that. So our weight and our body composition we can manage through calories and focusing on our macronutrients. And then our micronutrients, all those vitamins and minerals, that determines the health of your body. So how are we feeling on that, ladies? Yeah. Here we go. All right. Well, I don't want to take up too much of your night, but I'm hoping that that even just sparks some extra kind of information on things to be kind of more curious about, or even give you a foundation to ask different questions along the way. Um, but yeah, I just wanted to kind of open up that line of communication and share a little bit about that ideas of calories in versus calories out. And I've got a couple articles that I can share as well. Sometimes reading through it is helpful. And yeah. Okay. Well, if there's no questions, I'll let you guys sit with that for a little bit. And if anything comes up later, you can let me know. But really grateful for you gals to share your time. Thanks for hanging out. All right. Enjoy your night. Let me know if any questions come up. Night.